Okay. Now, it's almost like a dance. It's almost like a, you know, these days the most elegant thing that you can experience on television is maybe Eiskunstlauf, when pairs, you know, when they do these pirouettes and where they do this dancing around. One of the greatest exponents of that was Katharina Witt from East Germany. And actually, my brother-in-law used to be her boyfriend, and he was a physiotherapist. He went on tour with her in the United States. So it's very interesting. He was also later worked for a football club, FC Bayern. Have you ever heard of it? Okay. So his name is Oliver Schmidtlein. A little plug for Oliver. The idea is, though, that back then, Kunst, or even now, Eiskunstlauf seems to be one of the few, besides ballet in Bolshoi or on the Met or whatever, one of the few really elegant visual arts that we can enjoy. Or have you a better idea? Have you a better example?
I think I have to agree with this.
Maybe one of the viewers would make a better example or have a better idea than that. But I think it's because our world has become very competitive and very quantified. And it's always a question of the great stars in our world are the people that play soccer or light athletics, like track and field and whatever. Somebody like Usain Bolt, how fast he can run and whatever. But music has nothing to do with competition. It has nothing to do with anything that's quantified. It has to do only with quality. And so you cannot compete with somebody's greater or less sensitivity. You cannot say, oh, that person wasn't sensitive enough, or this person was too sensitive, or whatever. I mean, you even hear people calling other people, you're too sensitive. How can you possibly be too sensitive? I mean, you can be neurotic. You can have problems about the real world and dealing with it. But sensitivity has to do with the reality of understanding your own hearing and visual aspects. I mean, if you don't like loud noises, it's probably because your ears are very sensitive. If you don't like bright lights and cameras, blitzing in your eyes when you're having pictures taken, it's not because there's something wrong with you. It's because you're sensitive. To maintain sensitivity in a world full of quantifying, competitive structures that only force people against each other instead of getting them to communicate and cooperate with each other. We need to understand that, as far as I'm concerned. What do you think, Dan?
Yeah, I think also it's a result of trying to classify many things. But I agree that maybe it has gone too far, this thing, trying to organize ourselves, that's also one.
I'll give you a good example. I watched a debate between two persons that wanted to be the president of the United States on television. I stayed up until 4 o'clock in the morning to watch it, and I saw a man who was yelling another man down because he didn't want to listen to what that other man had to say because he was telling the truth. I'm not going to say who was yelling the other person down, but I will say that when I want to say something and someone won't listen, what am I supposed to do? I have to, if someone only yells at me, they're not trying to communicate. They think they're right. Okay, everyone's entitled to their opinion if they know what they're talking about and if they stay to the facts. But if someone's yelling at me lies about me and my family, yelling at me lies about his past and about his duties and about his accomplishments and being bellicose and important and rude, I think that's enough for a public to have seen that on television to know who is going to really be concerned about their feelings and their needs and make the right choice. I'm not an American, even though my father was born in Chicago. And I'm not a German, even though I've lived in Germany for 42 years. I'm Canadian. And in 1.5 years, or less than 1.5 years, I'll be ending my teaching duties here in Germany and going back to Canada. which I consider one of the freest countries in the world, where nature still has to be preserved, though, where people have to be generous and at the same time grateful to the environment that has allowed Canada to have so much riches, and the whole world and the people of this world to be so rich in culture, but also in resources. The biggest problem that I think in this world is that people have too little appreciation of nature and themselves as a part of nature. And that's why I'm very proud to be a Canadian. I've never been so proud to be a Canadian since I saw that discussion on television between two presidents, a vice president and present president of the United States. They are supposed to be the leaders of the free world. I'm very hopeful that the Americans who can vote, because even though my father was born in Chicago, I'm a Canadian citizen, that they do some thinking about their responsibility, not only to their wives and family and maybe their party, but to this whole world. You can't run away from responsibility. You have to understand the challenge that's involved with it. So here's a dedication to sensitivity once again. Let's try to play that phrase one more time.